Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. It's Christina from Our Wood Home. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about winter homesteading preparations inspired by Proverbs 31. I gave this presentation on Friday at my Women in Homesteading in-person group, and I wasn't planning on making a video reading this presentation over to you guys, but I had some encouragement from my stepmom and my husband also. They suggested I make a video, so that's what I'm doing today. I'm just going to be doing a voiceover with some just random nature scenes from my property for this video because I am reading from a script, I guess you could say, and I guess I could do that filming myself reading it, but I feel like that's just a bit more awkward. So I'm just going to read my presentation and you can enjoy some nature scenery over that. As I said, my name's Christina. Welcome to my channel if you are new, and if you've been here for a while, thank you for tuning in to today's video. In case you didn't know, I'm a full-time homemaker and full-time homesteader. I live in Ontario, Canada, on 1 acre with my husband, and we celebrate 13 years of marriage later this month, October. I've been homesteading in some capacity for about 12 years, so spring 2013 is when we started our first garden. My husband and I consider ourselves first-generation homesteaders, meaning neither of us grew up in this lifestyle. In 2017, I became really interested in Proverbs 31, so I spent a number of years researching and trying to learn how to apply this passage to my everyday life. One verse that really stuck out for me was Proverbs 31, verse 21, which reads, "She is not afraid of the snow for her household, for all her household are clothed with scarlet." That verse prompted me to study even more, even deeper. And then in 2022, I actually self-published my ebook titled Preparing for Winter Like the Proverbs 31 Woman. It's my hope today to encourage you to plan ahead for the changing seasons with a biblical mindset. You don't need any special skills, a lot of money, a specific type of house, or a specific type of homestead. I'd like you to pause this video and think about some of the ways that you currently prepare for winter. While you have this video paused, I'd also like you to think about Proverbs 31 in general and if you know anything about that passage. What does Proverbs even mean? The word Proverbs means a short phrase or saying stating a truth or a piece of advice. The book of Proverbs in the Bible is essentially a collection of wisdom and teachings for moral living. There are many different authors, but most of the book was written by King Solomon. There are other kings and Jewish scholars that had their writings included, and many of the chapters in Proverbs actually have uncredited authors. Proverbs 31 was actually written for a king named Lemuel, and it was written by his mother as a reminder of what to look for in a wife. She starts off by admonishing him to be wise, to avoid drinking alcohol, which could impair his abilities, and to defend people who can't defend themselves. Then she gives him a list of qualities in a good wife. I'm not going to read the first part of Proverbs 31 because it's not really relevant to the topic today, but I will read from verses 10 to 31. And it is a little bit lengthy, so bear with me here. "An excellent wife, who can find her? For her worth is far above jewels. The heart of her husband trusts in her, and he will have no lack of gain. She does him good and not evil all the days of her life. She looks for wool and flax and works with her hands in delight. She is like merchant ships. She brings her food from afar. And she rises while it is still night and gives food to her household and portions to her attendants. She considers a field and buys it. From her earnings she plants a vineyard. She surrounds her waist with strength and makes her arms strong. She senses that her profit is good. Her lamp does not go out at night. She stretches out her hand to the distaff, and her hands grasp the spindle. She extends her hand to the poor, and she stretches out her hands to the needy. She is not afraid of the snow for her household, for all her household are clothed with scarlet. She makes coverings for herself. Her clothing is fine linen and purple. Her husband is known in the gates when he sits among the elders of the land. She makes linen garments and sells them, and supplies belts to the tradesmen. Strength and dignity are her clothing, and she smiles at the future. She opens her mouth in wisdom, and the teaching of kindness is on her tongue. She watches over the activities of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. Her children rise up and bless her husband also, and he praises her, saying, "Many daughters have done nobly, but you excel them all." Charm is deceitful and beauty is vain, but a woman who fears the Lord shall be praised. Give her the product of her hand, and let her works praise her in the gates. Based on what I've read just now, I've compiled a list of some of the qualities that this Proverbs 31 woman has, which would serve us well for winter preparations. She's trustworthy, diligent in serving her family using her own unique abilities. She intentionally runs her household and meets her family's needs. She's hardworking and makes wise choices. She's humble and willing to do tasks that she doesn't have to do. She has a willingness to serve others, and she is disciplined and intentional with her time. In my book, I explore these and a lot of other qualities in greater detail, but I'm going to keep it simple today, mainly just focusing on those that are relevant to homesteading. I'm sure all of us make some kind of preparation in anticipation of winter, but I'm hoping to share some new ideas and suggestions that you might not have thought of. I'll also share some simple steps to take in the event of an approaching winter storm, as well as some practical things that you can do today to start being prepared for winter. Let's talk about some general winter prep outside on the homestead. This might not apply to you specifically. We all have different homesteads. We have different needs, different responsibilities, but this is kind of just a general guideline. Harvest any of your remaining gardens, any vegetables, herbs that need to be gathered. Pull out dead plants if desired, and then apply a mulch or other covering for spring weed control. If you have any outdoor hoses or water sources that you will not be using for livestock, drain and disconnect those. Clean out any animal enclosures, providing fresh bedding and checking for any areas that need repair. Consider stocking up on animal feed, at least maybe one bag extra for your animals so that if there is inclement weather or shortages at stores, you don't need to panic. You won't be out of food for a little while. Make or stock your first aid kit for animals. I'm not qualified to give advice for what specific things you should put in a livestock first aid kit, but there's tons of information online. Inspect your snow shovels to make sure they're still usable. Again, this might not apply to you if you don't even live in a place that has snow, and you may be wondering why we would need to inspect our snow shovels, but basically, a lot of them are made of plastic, so they can crack easily, they can get warped and damaged, and even the handles can break. And the last thing you want is a damaged shovel in the middle of a snowstorm. So check now to make sure they're still usable, and if not, get to replacing those. If you use a snowblower or any other type of equipment for snow removal, have that inspected. And if you need gasoline or any other type of fuel for your snowblower, a generator, or other equipment, start stocking up on that fuel now. You don't need to go crazy, just a few extra cans. Inside the home, start filling your freezer with meals and or ingredients, or can them if that's your preference. You don't have to use a freezer. Stock up on pantry essentials, whatever that is for your family. That could be bottled water, soups, crackers, canned meats, granola bars, oatmeal, whatever you consider essential in your pantry. Take inventory of your winter clothes, coats, boots, etc. for all family members, and make sure everything fits and is still usable. If new items are needed, make a list of what to buy, and if repairs are needed, set those aside. Check your flashlights and replace batteries if needed. If you have indoor pets or animals, consider buying some extra food for them. If you don't already have a first aid kit for your household human family members, consider making one. And if you do have one, just take inventory and stock up. If you are planning to make any herbal tinctures, salves, syrups, etc., start doing that now. At this point, you may be wondering what this list of preparations actually has to do with the Proverbs 31 woman. In my opinion, the main character traits of this woman are that she is planning ahead, she's making wise decisions, she's always thinking of her family's needs as well as her own, and she's doing it all using her own unique abilities. When we clean out our gardens, we are planning ahead for next spring. Taking time to ready our animals for winter is wise because it means less chance of problems happening later. When we stock up on food items, whether that's home canning, freezing produce we get at the grocery store, or buying extra packages of pasta for the pantry, we are planning ahead to meet our family's needs. Proverbs 31 encourages us not to just think of ourselves, but actively look for ways to serve our family. Of course, we personally, as women, don't have to be the ones to keep the entire household running smoothly. Everybody does things differently and everybody has different responsibilities. In my household, the indoor work is my responsibility. My husband works a full-time job away from the home, but he does have his own responsibilities, especially in the winter. Snow removal is all his job. For me, being at peace when winter comes gives me a huge sense of satisfaction because I know that I've prepared the best that I can. All that being said, you personally don't have to be the one doing it. A wise woman who intentionally runs her household is not afraid to delegate tasks. For example, if your husband is a great cook and he enjoys cooking, ask him to make a double batch of a meal so that half of it can be frozen for later. If you have older kids who can handle responsibilities such as livestock care, give that chore to them for the winter. Similarly, find your village of like-minded people who are willing and able to help you. I'm so thankful to have my women in homesteading community. If that's something that sounds kind of interesting to you, I will put a link for women in homesteading in the description of this video, actually. We are an in-person group started in Canada, but we have chapters across Canada and in America as well. And there is information on our website for starting your own chapter. This community, the Women in Homesteading community, is amazing because it really exemplifies community sufficiency, not self-sufficiency. For example, at our meetup, our founder, Holly, was giving away a bunch of cabbages from her garden. They were really small, but she just had an excess and was offering it for free. She also brought some other produce that she was selling for perfectly reasonable prices. Another member raises chicken and she had some butchered and was offering it at very good prices for a group. I also bought some bedding for my chicken coop from her. It's just a great community. One comment I often hear from women who read Proverbs 31 is that it's not a realistic lifestyle. Verse 15 says that she has attendants, which is another word for servants, so she obviously isn't doing all the work herself. That's absolutely true, and she certainly wouldn't have the need to do all the same things that we do as modern women. But is this a good enough reason to discount a whole chapter of the Bible on wisdom? I don't think so. And if we really think about it, we have servants now, but we call them convenience items. We can turn on a tap and hot or cold water comes right into our house. We don't have to go out to a well and haul water inside or build a fire to heat up that water. We have cars that can get us to the grocery store, electricity that comes on instantly, all kinds of ingredients and gadgets that can make cooking a simpler task. So I encourage you to be inspired by the Proverbs 31 woman, but also don't feel like you need to do every single thing that she does. Part of being a modern-day Proverbs 31 woman is planning ahead so that when situations arise, we can calmly react and look out for our family. If we're already preparing for winter in general, hopefully a storm won't catch us off guard, but it happens. In 2023, right around Christmas, there was a terrible storm forecasted for my part of Ontario. It was really rainy and then windy, and then it snowed on top of all the rain. This went on for several days, just in repeat. Rain, wind, snow, rain, wind, snow. But thankfully, I was prepared. In the winter, I am always checking the weather forecast multiple times a day so that I know if I need to take extra steps. If a storm is predicted, I assume that I won't be able to drive because my road won't be plowed right away. I also assume that the stores will be closed and that we might even lose power. In 2023, when I knew that storm was going to happen, here's what I did to prepare. I filled empty water jugs for drinking for the people in my house and my pets. I also filled watering cans of water that I could give to my chickens later. I filled a large water tote for flushing the toilets and hand washing. I brought my flashlights out of storage and tested those batteries. All my canned food and pantry items are kept in the basement, which is down 2 flights of stairs. So I brought up lots of food, lots of canned goods to my kitchen, enough for several days worth of meals, just so we didn't have to go down the stairs in the dark. We heat our house exclusively with wood. We do have a propane furnace, but we never use it. So I made sure lots of firewood was brought inside for the wood stoves so that we didn't have to go out and walk across the property in giant snow drifts and then shovel our way into the woodshed. I brought out extra blankets for us to use and for my pets to use. I made sure that the snow shovels were within easy reach on the back deck and the front deck, so we didn't have to rummage around in the garage or anywhere else for them. Because I knew this storm was coming, I was able to go to the gas station early and get a few extra cans of gas for the snowblower and for our small generator just in case the power went out. We typically have extra gas cans in our shed. My husband keeps them pretty well stocked, but we just wanted extra just in case. Since we do have a small generator, I did get some extension cords from our house, just made sure that they were long enough to use with the generator and that they were easily accessible in case we needed it. All of these tasks, minus going to get gas, took about an hour total, but it was time well spent. It didn't take very long at all. Based on what we know about the Proverbs 31 woman, there are 4 main things I think she would consider in anticipation of a storm. They are shelter, warmth, food and water, and neighbors and nearby family. Let's explore those categories a bit. Shelter is pretty straightforward. Don't be making non-essential trips before or during a storm. Make sure pets and animals have a safe place to wait it out and give them plenty of food and water that will stay protected from the rain or the snow. There were some really cold days several years ago, and my chicken coop was about minus 20 degrees Celsius in the coop. That was pretty much the same temperature as it was outside. And I have a heater in the coop for the chickens, but it just couldn't keep up because it was so cold and windy. So I used some nails to tack up an old blanket over the window in their coop, which kept out the chill, and it made it much more comfortable for them. The category of warmth. I realize not everyone has a generator or a fireplace or some other way to create heat if the power goes out, but I know there's a lot of alternatives on the market, such as portable heaters. So if your budget allows, considering purchasing something of this sort for the future. If that's not possible, make sure to have an extra supply of blankets, warm sweaters, socks, etc., that your family can layer on to stay warm. Additionally, consider buying inexpensive single-use hand warmers. Little Hotties is the brand that we have for emergencies, and they work really well. Here in Canada, you can buy those on Amazon, at Canadian Tire, sometimes at Walmart and at Costco. If you're heating with wood, make sure you've got a huge supply within easy reach should it be needed. Next up, food and water. If there's a storm forecasted, plan for a power outage and have food that doesn't need to be cooked. If you have access to a propane barbecue or a camp stove, make sure you are using those outside. You might want to have some canned soups at the ready because those can just be heated up easily and quickly on one of those other methods. Obviously, it's important to have water for everyone to drink, but consider a source of water for things like washing your hands, brushing your teeth, and flushing the toilet. The last category of neighbors and nearby family. Our neighbors in our immediate area actually all have large generators and big tractors for snow removal. So I feel like maybe they should be checking on us because we don't have a huge generator and my husband just has a small snowblower, but we still keep an eye on things when there's a big storm and see if anybody needs help shoveling their steps or pushing their truck out of a snowdrift. Our parents and siblings all live about 45 minutes away from us or more, so it's not possible to physically check on them in bad weather, but we make sure to check in on the phone and stay in contact. And then once the roads are safe to drive, we will offer with snow clearing, offer to help with snow clearing if needed. You can do similar checks on the people who live close by to you. I know that I've shared a lot of information so far, so I hope you're not too overwhelmed. I'm going to give some simple steps that you can take today to start preparing for winter as inspired by the Proverbs 31 woman. This is repetitive because I've said it many times throughout, but I think it will be helpful to just have this in a condensed spot right here. Step number 1, check all winter boots, coats, hats, etc., and make sure they fit and can be worn. If anything needs replacing, make a list. Step 2, make a list of shelf-stable foods to have on hand in case of a power outage. They should require minimal or no cooking. Step 3, buy some large jugs of water. Alternatively, reuse containers that you already have and fill them with tap water and then freeze them. Thaw them as needed. The bonus with this is your frozen jugs of water can help keep your fridge and freezer cold if there's an outage. Just pull those jugs out of the freezer quickly and put them in the fridge. Number 4, if you haven't already done so, make a family first aid kit or a natural medicine kit and make one for animals too if applicable. Step 5, inventory your flashlights to make sure they work and are easily located in the event of a storm. I also recommend getting a few headlamps because these are really convenient to be hands-free when you're working. I want to end with 2 final notes. Firstly, an explanation of what Proverbs 31:21 means. It's the verse that kind of inspired all of this for me. She is not afraid of snow for her household, for all her household are clothed with scarlet. In my research, I came across a lot of articles from scholars and commentators that believe this verse is literal. So the Proverbs 31 woman would be dressing her family in red clothes because it looks nice and it's flashy. In biblical times, red was a color of wealth and royalty. But based on everything we already know about the character of the Proverbs 31 woman, I can't imagine looks were her top priority. I did a lot more research, and I actually learned that in the early manuscripts of the Bible, the word scarlet, as it's used here, meant double layer. So her household was clothed with enough appropriate layers to stay warm in a cold climate. Instead of wearing nice flowy linen garments like in the summer, she made sure her family had the appropriate thicker clothing for the cold weather. She isn't afraid of snow because she trusts God and knows that He will take care of her and her household. But she doesn't only rely on blind faith. She does her part using the brains God gave her, and she knows that she has done what she can to be prepared. The second thing I want to share is that the Proverbs 31 woman was not a real woman. She didn't live and breathe, and the passages aren't describing someone who existed and was the model wife. Proverbs 31 verse 1, which I didn't read, it states, "The words of King Lemuel, the pronouncement which his mother taught him." As I said at the start, Proverbs 31 was meant to be advice for King Lemuel from his mother. She was telling him to look for a woman who does these things and has this kind of character. We can strive to emulate those character traits, such as trustworthiness, diligence, wisdom, a good work ethic, humility, discipline, and a willingness to serve others. All of these will help us better prepare for winter. I hope that you enjoyed this video and were able to learn something from it. I know it's quite lengthy, but I had a lot of information that I wanted to share with you all. In the description of this video, I will leave a link for the Women in Homesteading website. I highly encourage you to check that out. I'll also leave some links to purchase copies of my book, which is available on Amazon. I would love to know your thoughts on this topic, on winter preparedness in general. And if you have a homestead of any kind, I'd love to hear your thoughts about homestead winter prep. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you have a great rest of your day.